Iceland is an island, volcanic island, located in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And the only reason why people actually can live here and grow trees and agriculture and fisheries is because of the Gulf Stream that brings hot ocean all the way from Caribbean up to Iceland. Iceland was covered with probably 1/3 of the country with birds, both forest or woodland. But then the settlers came 1100 years ago, Vikings from Norway, and they began burning down the forest and grazing the forest, cutting down trees. And through the centuries the forest diminished, got smaller and smaller, and in the end only 1% of the country was left with forest cover.
In the old days, when the people were even starving, they were not really concentrating on overgrazing because they are trying to survive. But today we are not starving, we're getting fatter and fatter as a nation. So that's not actually excuse anymore. So we don't need to overgraze, we can avoid it. We know how to do it properly. The farmer's profit of sheep comes from the vegetation. If you overgraze this sensitive vegetation and in this sensitive ecosystem, you can damage the ground, and that can lead to erosion, soil erosion.
Iceland has a long tradition of sheep farming, and people are still using rather old-fashioned methods in grazing. For example, bring sheep up to the highlands where there is rather limited vegetation left, instead of maybe grazing on their homelands and fencing off some areas where they could graze during the summertime.
Since Iceland was colonized, we have lost half of our vegetation and soil, so we can't really afford to lose more.
We have been working for 1 century, the foresters of Iceland and Soil Conservation Service, trying to rebuild the forests. This is a typical area that was damaged by erosion. Probably 500-600 years ago this was all forested. Underneath the soil is ash from Hekla volcano. The vegetation is actually protecting the soil from both water and wind erosion. You get root growth growing into the soil that makes it more stable and builds it up, and then you have the upper part of the trees that protect the soil from catastrophes like ash deposits from the volcanoes around. It has been the aim of the state to reclaim more birch woodlands, and the main benefit for the state would be both carbon fixation, soil protection, and also shelter for the local people, farmers, and increase the life quality because you get less dust spreading over the area. Every year we plant about 250,000 seedlings, and the idea is that these trees, when they grow up in 5 or 10 years, they begin to form seeds. These trees then spread out in the surroundings and form new forests.
We have seen many signs of improvement of the vegetation. The gaps that with no vegetation, they are closing, which is lovely to see. The reason for this is because we have warmer climate now.
We are getting a bit warmer winters and even hotter summers, and it's helping us reclaiming vegetation, especially the higher grounds of Iceland. But the disadvantages would be warmer winter that could either create problems for some tree species or vegetation, or bring more insects, plagues that would damage the vegetation. in Iceland.
When we get a milder climate and more vegetation, it's more danger of invasive species that can change our natural vegetation. I'm very well aware about the bad side of it, like we are losing our ice caps or glaciers. They are getting smaller and smaller, and if we lose them, it is quite a sad thing. So we have many bad sides of it.